I'm Mike Costello, and I'm here with Dr. Iris Freelander, and we'd like to talk to you today about the fact that the battle is not yours. In our lives, we all seem to fight a battle, but in truth, we don't have to fight as hard as we believe that we do we, Iris?
That's correct. And I think in every church and every religion, they have the saying, let go and let God. And so however vernacular we use, that's good advice. Because when we do let go, then we're able to think more clearly. We're able to put things together more easily and less painfully. Isn't that true?
Absolutely. And it's interesting that the idea and the concept of the fact that we don't have to fight our way through life certainly is a part of our spiritual tradition, but it can be a part of just our daily life in general. I'm thinking about how many people just get so weary from the struggle of fighting the daily battle and the daily grind. But in fact, we don't have to struggle as hard as we believe we need to. And of course, in our philosophy, we say so often that we live in our minds and not in the world. The way that we think about circumstances and situations, the way that we feel about the world and the world that we live in determines the quality of our life and also the confidence that we have that we will be guided and directed. And it doesn't really matter what our religious belief is, or even if we have no religious belief, because even people with no religious belief can give up the struggle if they simply understand that we all can be guided and directed through the process of life, because there is a great power and an infinite force that will open the doors and help us to get where we need to go.
Yes, and then we realize that in resisting, we're creating greater pain within ourselves, whether it's physical, mental, or whatever. And so then when we do give up and we see how much easier it is, we learn our lesson for that time, but we never remember it. We so often don't remember it. And the next time, it's the same thing all over again. We think we have to fight really hard for whatever it is we want, whatever it is we're endeavoring to gain, when in fact, the more we give up, the more, what is it? He who loses his life will find it, or we have to lose our life in order to find it. It's somewhere it says in the Bible to that effect, and it's the same idea, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. To understand that as we fight the battle of life, as we fight the challenges and the changes, we simply become a part of the negative aspects of life. And I think that is a tremendously important lesson that we have to share with others, and that is that as our mind begins to believe in the negative and the struggling aspects of life, we go into a negative cycle. And I think now about the people that have come to us for counseling, as kind of stepping out of the spiritual realm and more into the mental realm, and the psychological realm. But as people come and they're depressed, one of the things that people say so often when they're depressed is that they have this sinking feeling. And as they become depressed and their consciousness and their awareness and their thoughts are focused upon that depression and the despair and the hopelessness, they have this spiraling downward feeling. And it is the process of mind that is allowing them to embrace that battle that they're fighting, when in fact, when we reach the bottom, so often, or when those who are struggling with depression reach the bottom, or when we're in the midst of a challenge or a difficulty and we just have nowhere to turn, and we stop fighting the circumstance, then the opportunities are open. Because I think it's important for us to always remember that no matter who we are, no matter what our financial situation, no matter what our ethnic background, our educational level, no matter what it is that's unique about us, the one thing that is that we all have in common is we're going to have difficult times. We're going to have challenges. And as I speak to people, I really impress upon them over and over again, and you do as well, the idea that life is filled with challenges and difficulties, and those challenges and difficulties are a part of the human condition, and that there's nothing negative necessarily about those experiences, but that those experiences can create within us the ability to give up control, to give up the fighting, and to go with the flow, if you will, and to be guided and directed in new and different ways. And I just think of someone who, a number of people who over the years have come and have lost their jobs. And very often when people lose jobs, it's devastating, it's hard, it's demoralizing, it's fearful. But all of those feelings that we have, and we need to have those feelings initially, we need to go through the grieving process, we need to attach to those. But then after that individual attaches for a period of time to that grieving, if you will, and to that hurt, then we let go of the hurt and we embrace the change, and we understand that there's going to be another job, and there's going to be another opportunity, there's going to be another group of people to work with, and that so often the loss of a job can be a stepping stone to something much more marvelous or more wonderful. But it's hard to see in the midst of the experience.
Almost always that's true, isn't it? That something better comes along. But at the time people are going through that great travail, then they think it's the end of the world, and they think it couldn't possibly be better. I was thinking, too, that when we were talking about resistance, when I was a hospice volunteer for 10 years, and I learned during that time that when people resist their pain, then they feel ever greater pain. And if they just flow with it, and it's possible to do that, many do, then they didn't feel nearly as much pain. And that's a good lesson in life of the non-resistance. Of course, Gandhi and others have shown us that. But it's hard to learn that lesson, isn't it?
It's hard to learn it, but as we learn it and as we practice it, we get, like anything else, we get better at it. And we're all practitioners in this thing called life, the experience of life. And if we can remind ourselves in times of hurt and pain and limit and loss that we don't have to fight, that we will get something good out of this, that maybe we can't see it at the present moment, that we can't even begin to visualize it at the very moment of our pain, as we go with the pain and with the loss and with the difficulty, then we open our minds to new ways and of thinking and new direction. And it works in all aspects of our life. It works when we've lost a job. It works when we have not enough money. It works when we're faced with a physical challenge. It works when a relationship is ended. It works in all of the circumstances of life. And I think we don't want to get away from this without impressing upon our viewers the importance of feeling the way that we feel. We need to feel the way that we feel. If we've lost a job, we can't say, oh, isn't that wonderful? We will come to say that, and we hope that they will come to say that. But at the moment, it's a shock, and it's a pain, and the same with financial reverses. But we've seen so many people, and certainly in metaphysical New Thought philosophy, a lot of thought is given and a lot of the teaching is directed to prosperity teaching. And we don't spend a lot of time on that because we know that those teachings and those principles work, but they work in the material sense, but we want people to have them work in the psychological and the spiritual sense, and then the material reality will follow. And so in that process, we can have any number, and we have had any number of people who've come to us who have gone through horrible financial disasters, lost businesses, gone through bankruptcies, and out of it have come into a newness of life, into new professions, into a new and restored life. And it's giving up the struggle and giving up the sense of needing to control what's going on. And the reality is that we can't always be in control. Thank goodness, because if we're in control all the time, we would never have the opportunities that will ultimately come to us. And of course, that's not to say that we want to go out and look for disaster, and it's not to say that we want to encourage people to create disaster, but it does mean that as we have these circumstances happen to us, that good things can come out of it. And it starts with the process of mind and the way that we think about circumstance and situation. Negative people are always fighting. They're always fighting with themselves. They're always fighting with others. They're always struggling. And positive people are less resistant, are more passive in their relationships with others and with the circumstances of life, and thereby are open to allow the inflow of new ideas and new directions and new opportunities.
Years ago, I knew the president of Eastern Airlines, and I asked him how long it took him to become president of that great company, and he said he had 3 businesses that failed before that, and but he never gave up because one, he knew that his friends and family would boost him, fluff him up with new finances to help him get going again, and if another one failed, he knew he would have the next one wouldn't, and he was a very large man, tall and strong-looking man, and he had the strength of his own convictions, and that was a very wonderful lesson for me, and I hope it will be a lesson for those who listen to us today, because just to keep going takes courage, but it also is the most sensible, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. And I think we've touched upon something that's very important. When we say that the battle is not ours, it doesn't mean that we don't have to work. And, you know, there's a difference there. And we do have to work. And there are wonderful rewards to work. And so it isn't that we just fold our hands and wait for infinite intelligence and the power and grace of God or whatever it is that we believe to bring things to it. It is that we open ourselves to the possibility and that we give up the struggle and that we give up the fighting. And as we give up the fight, then we are able to really allow that inflow of wonderful things to happen in our lives.
Yes, and I've heard you say in church, let go and let God. Empower me, I've forgotten exactly how you say it. Empower me and direct me in the way I need to go. And is that the way you say it?
Absolutely. You know, we say so often religious or spiritual people, and there's a difference, as we won't go into that right now, but so often we say let go and let God, and that kind of just takes it off, takes the responsibility off my shoulders and gives it over to God. But in fact, or for those that are less religious, we might say let go and let infinite intelligence or let the divine guide us and direct us. And the words don't matter, but we add to that, let go and let God guide us and direct us in the ways that we should go, the things that we should do. And we have to do. That's the important thing. And we are empowered to do great and wonderful things because of the gifts that we are given by the Creator. And the Creator has given us such a wonderful world in which to live and to work and so many great opportunities, but to just fold our hands and to give it all over to God or give it all over to fate is to give up. And so often we say, don't give up, but give in. Give in to the fact that this is the way that it is. And in our counseling work, we spend time working with people who are challenged, whatever the challenge is, whether it's financial or with health challenge or relationship ending, all the things that we've talked about. And we say that this is the way that it is. That's where we start. We start by understanding this is the way that it is. Now, where do I want to go? And what do I need to do to make something happen?
And God always gives us the strength and the power to do what we need to do, but then we have to do it, and it's just like God gave mankind free will. And a lot of people say, why would God let this happen? And sometimes people become very bitter, and they're bitter the rest of their lives because they don't recuperate from that loss that they felt, whatever it was, it's work or personal relationship or whatever. But if we could just remember that God does give us the strength, it's ever available, then it makes it easier to go on with whatever it is we need to pursue. And then also we have a sense of accomplishment that I think is very empowering.
Absolutely. And of course, in our philosophy, we talk a lot about divine mind or infinite intelligence. And for a lot of people from traditional backgrounds, those are new words. But all that means is that the power and grace of God is infinite intelligence. And if we connect our mind with divine mind, then we will be guided and directed in the way that we should go. We'll be given the solutions that we need in life, and we need not struggle or fight. And so we understand that the battle isn't ours, and that by giving up the fight, we can give in to the circumstance, and then we can be guided and directed to do the things that we need to do. We'd like to pause at this point in the program to offer you an opportunity to receive some literature so that you can continue to study the ideas and concepts we're sharing with you today.
We would like to offer you the opportunity to receive one of these free booklets to further your understanding of the New Thought message of confident living. Each month we will feature a different booklet, which will be mailed to you free and postage paid. Simply address your request to Confident Living at P.O. Box 7726, Long Beach, California, 90807.
Giving up in the struggles of life might seem too simple.
It might. It might very well, because people think they have to struggle, and they think they have to really sacrifice. And so when it's so very easy, it's like a mirage to some people, isn't it?
It is, but in metaphysics, we teach people, and of course there are many, many who come into our fellowship and to groups like ours, who understand the empowering teaching and the concepts of these ideas. And it's important, too, to remember that we're not talking about anybody changing their faith. We never do that. But we are asking people to change the way that they think. And if they change the way that they think within their faith context, or even if they have no faith, that their faith is not required to make any of this work. These are universal principles, and the universal reality is that we needn't struggle and fight the battle of life. In fact, life is an ebb and a flow. And if we can get into the ebb and the flow of life, then we have the understanding and the realization that there are going to be good times, there are going to be challenging times, there are going to be difficulties, and there are going to be overcoming times. And that ebbing and flowing empowers us to be stronger and better persons, both physically, mentally, and spiritually. And also, none of this philosophy takes away from God at all.
Exactly.
And so often people think that this is humanism at its worst. Well, we say it's humanism at its best, because we believe that we are the greatest creation of God, and that all of us are connected to the power and the grace of infinite intelligence and the divine now and always. And that relationship never changes. And if we would just understand that, then we would understand that we're connected to infinite intelligence and divine guidance always and everywhere. And so there is not the need to battle or struggle, but instead for us to open our minds, to center ourselves. And one of the ways that we do that, and we have just a little while left in this program, we don't want to get away from the fact that you and I in our center and in our counseling work, we promote the concepts and the ideas of centering prayer and of meditation, and of relieving ourselves of the stress and the strain and the fight and the battle of daily life by going into a quiet place and becoming serene within. And in today's environment, we need that so desperately, and we need it to let go of the battle and to let go of the struggle, don't we?
Yes, we do. And in our prayer, we need to be grateful and offer praise and thanksgiving. And when we do, it makes a difference in our own attitude toward life, instead of we just tell God all the things we need. And in every religion, I believe it's taught that God knows what we need before we ask. But it's okay to ask, but only briefly, but to spend more time in prayer and thanksgiving. And then as we always say, meditation is listening to God. And then in meditation, and then it's amazing the energy and the thoughts we can gain through meditation. And I would encourage anyone who doesn't meditate regularly to try doing that. And they don't have to sit for a really long time. They can sit for 5 minutes or even less if that's all the time they have. And they can go into meditation just for a moment. And that's what, and some might call that centering, in a sense, although centering is a little different than meditation. But it wouldn't matter what we call any of those activities. It's what gives us peace of mind and encouragement and hope. So then we're living a life of depending on God for guidance, but knowing that we have to, as you said earlier, make our own decisions and follow through on those decisions and take responsibility for our own lives, but knowing that we're always undergirded if we but look for that. And it's always ever present, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's always ever present, and we're always connected to that which is divine. And we've been told and we've been taught somehow that we're separated and that God's out there, or the divine is out there, and we need to do something. And really all we need to do is to understand that that undergirding presence of infinite intelligence and that connectiveness with the Creator never ends. And because of that, there's no need to struggle. Because of that, there's no need to fight. Because of that, there's no need to fear. Because of that, there's no need to plead. And I was just thinking when you were talking about prayers, how often we spend time pleading with God as though we're going to change his or her mind. And the fact is that we're not going to change the way that God feels about us, but what we are going to do is to change the way that we feel about our life and about our circumstance and our situation and about our relationship with each other and with the presence and power of God. And when we change that into the understanding and realization of our unity with all persons and with the presence and power, then there's nothing more to fight about, or there's nothing more to fight for. And it doesn't mean, again, that we're not going to have difficulties and that we're not going to have sufferings. Those will come. But as those come and as those challenges come, we will be able to deal with them without fighting and without struggle and without the battle.
And it means we won't have the stress in our lives that we would otherwise have. And we have the energy and stamina then to forge ahead and think of new things or help others or do the things that we really want to do that are not pertaining to our major work. And it makes life ever so much more enjoyable. So we have to really observe ourselves and observe our own lives and see how that miracle occurs, because it always occurs, doesn't it? Every time we give up to our problems to a higher power, then we're left ever so much more free. And anyone who doesn't do that, if they would just try it once, they would see the difference. And when we're going through stress and problems, we think that there's no other answer, that we don't have choices. We always have choices.
Yeah, we always have choices, and we are always responsible. And I think that's the key. And that in metaphysical New Thought philosophy, it is a faith, it is a philosophy, it is a way of life that puts personal responsibility on the individual. And again, it takes nothing away from the presence and power of the Creator God, but it puts everything upon our shoulders in the understanding and realization that we have been empowered and gifted with every resource that we need.
Exactly. And some people think it's being very presumptuous and perhaps sacrilegious to say we are co-creators with Creator God, but indeed we are. Indeed we are. And if we look at our lives, when we live successfully and happily, we can see that we create. And it started, I think, in the 50s or 60s, where they were saying we create our own reality. And indeed we do. But we have to ask ourselves, what reality am I creating in my own life? Is it stress and worry, or is it ease and contentment? And therefore, if we live with ease and contentment, then we have the strength and power to accomplish more in our lives, in every area of our lives. So someone once said, you can't knock success. So we can see that in our lives. We can see it in the people around us.
And then we also don't get tired and weary.
That's it.
Because the battle and the struggle is wearying and tiring. And we can see it on people's faces, we can see it in their lives, and we hear about it in our counseling work all the time, about the burdens that people feel and how tired they are all the time. And if people are tired, they're tired of fighting, and they're tired of battling, and they're tired of this war that's going on within them and around them. And if we could just help people, and that's what our work is about, helping people to give up the battle and give up the struggle, and to have vitality and have health and strength and abundance and joy and empowerment and all all of those things are accessible to every one of us. And it doesn't matter who we are, it doesn't matter what our background is, they are available to us all.
Exactly. And when you mentioned we don't get as tired, that is very important. And if nothing else is an inducement for people to change their way, if they don't relax and just enjoy life and get on with whatever it is they want to do in a peaceful way, then that alone should do it. And when we try it, I know someone said to me years ago, "You never get tired." And I said, "Well, I don't really know." And so he said, "Well, you go at your own pace." He says, "I've studied you, and that's why you don't get tired, because you go at your own pace." And I think that's another way of saying that you don't get upset at whatever life brings, because you know life's going to bring, as you said so well earlier, we're going to face everything in our lives. We're going to face disappointment. We're going to face what we might call failure, but very often when we call a situation in our lives a failure, it's not a failure, it's a change. So, and we accept it as change and know that things will be better. So when we do live like that, then the person who does live like that is an inspiration to others. And I can think of many people who are an inspiration to me in that way. And you're a very great inspiration to many, because that's how you live your life.
We try.
Yeah.
We all try, and we try also to have that inner peace and vitality. And I must say, people will often say to me, "How do you do all that you do, and you never seem to get tired?" I don't get tired because I do get tired at the end of the day, of course, but I don't get exhausted from the struggle of life.
Yeah.
I get
Doesn't affect you.
enthusiastic. And Charles Fillmore, who was the founder of Unity, a part of the movement that we're a part of, said in his 90s, "I sizzle with enthusiasm." And what a thing to sizzle at the age of 90. And so this truth and this teaching allows us to sizzle with life, always and everywhere. And if we could simply learn that the battle is not ours, and that we need not struggle so vehemently and with such difficulty, then life can become more joyful, more uplifting, and more empowering. And we hope the ideas and concepts we've shared with you have been useful, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Mike and Iris would like to extend a cordial invitation for you to join them this Sunday morning at 11 a.m. for our weekly celebration service at the beautiful Seaport Marina Hotel at the corner of Pacific Coast Highway and 2nd Street, adjacent to the Marina Pacifica and Marketplace shopping centers. There will be a guided meditation, prayers, spirited music, and a dynamic, life-changing New Thought message. Please join us this Sunday. You will be warmly welcomed into the company of like-minded, positive, and uplifting people. And remember, whatever your dream, whatever your vision, you can attain it through confident living.